the healthier the culture is, the better the leadership, the more productive, innovative, and high performing the people are going to be. It really isn't that hard. It's a direct business equation. This is a business conversation we're having right now.
Hello, everyone. In this episode, we will talk about how to be a good leader. And to talk about this, we have invited the author of Caring Techie and the engineering manager. So, a warm welcome to Irina, and tell us about yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Huzaifa. I'm thrilled to be here. As you mentioned, I'm an engineering leader, and I'm also writing my newsletter, thecaringtechie.com. I'm also passionate about coaching, and I do that on the side. But yeah, I'm just excited to be here. I love helping with whatever insights or experiences or knowledge I can share. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, that is absolutely amazing. And tell us about your journey, from a junior software engineer to an engineering manager. And I have seen your profile that you have worked with some of the big companies like, Google and Uber. So yeah, tell us about that journey.
Yeah, I think I have a pretty traditional computer science background. I graduated in Romania from the Polytechnic University with a degree in computer engineering, and my life took a crazy turn after I got an offer from Google. I wasn't really planning on even moving to the United States, but some of my friends encouraged to give Google a shot. So, to which I thought they're crazy, but I did. I tried. And so I got an offer from Google, and then I packed my life into two suitcases and moved to California by myself as a 23-year-old. Uh, yeah, so life
That
at
is
Google was pretty great. I was there for five
quite
years.
young at the age
Yeah.
of 23, moving to a new country and then experiencing everything. So that is crazy, and that requires some guts as well, like you're leaving your hometown and then just going into a new country at this young age, and then seeing you right now, you have excelled. So yeah, that's good.
To be honest, I didn't really think it through that much. I just told myself I'd be stupid to say no to Google.
Yeah.
As a new grad who got one offer from Google to move to California, I was like, I'll figure it out later. I'll go and I'll figure everything out later.
Yeah, that is true. Like no one wants to reject Google, and then once they realize they move in their career and they realize, oh shit, I say no to Google. So yeah, okay. And then what happens afterward? Like you come to US, and I didn't want it to disturb you. Just you can continue your story there.
Yeah, so I was at Google for a little over 5 years, and I think my life there was really great. I learned a ton, and I progressed basically from new grad all the way to senior engineer, tech lead, and TLM, which is tech lead manager. So I was doing a hybrid tech lead plus managing people role. Um, yeah, and after 5 years, although I was quite happy at Google, I felt like I was ready for a change because I feel like staying too long in the same place and it can kind of make you stagnate. And I knew moving from Google would be like uncomfortable, create discomfort, but I always thought it would bring growth. So that's what I did. And then I decided to join Uber because that's where one of the best managers I've ever had moved from basically Google to Uber. So I kind of followed him. I wanted to really to work with him again because he was just extraordinary. So after I joined Uber, I stayed there for 3.5 years and I continued growing my career and got to staff. And then in 2020, I took a career break because I got really burnt out. And actually, that's the year when my newsletter was born out of my burnout because I wanted to write about my burnout experience. Um, so I took time to heal from burnout and learn my lessons. And then afterwards, I joined an early stage startup as a first hire, and I was there for more than 1.5 years until. And at the startup, wore multiple hats, from individual contributor to tech lead to engineering manager. And this year in July, I decided to take a break from the early stage startup and rest for a little bit and focus on content creation, writing my newsletter, growing my newsletter, and coaching. So that's what I do now. But I will get back in the industry hopefully soon because I miss working with teams. I love building things with teams.
That is some great experience, Irina, and working in like first Google and then working in Uber. And I know like these companies, they have like a very big platform. Like just by working in these platform as I would say intern as well gives you a lot of, experience and exposure. And then working in, these companies as a manager, technical manager, it's like whole another level. You understand and face different sort of challenges. So yeah, tell us about the challenges you face, like in everyday certain things that you faced in Google and Uber.
I mean, the challenges are literally all over the place. There are different types of challenges. There are, for example, technical challenges, obviously. How to make things happen. You have like your product manager comes with a requirement, or there's a strategic project that your team needs to lead. How do you make that happen? So it's the technical stuff, but there are a lot of the challenges is just that come from working with people, because people, and if I have to say something after 14 years in tech, it's not the coding part that's hard. It is not. It is the people part. So, and also you're not at one mindset shift as you progress in your career is the fact that it's more about the team than you. And in order to do anything, you need yourself. One person is not enough. It's like you have to work with teams. You have to bring people together. And I think that one was a big one.
Yeah, that is
To learn, and also the one that pays off the most, I think.
Yeah, that is true, that managing people, it's a challenge. It's one of the biggest challenge in the tech industry. And with that, the next thing that I want to discuss is that every software engineer after like 6-7 years down the road have this question in their mind that should I become the engineering manager? So what is your answer to that question?
Yeah, actually, this question is probably one of the most common questions that I get in my mentorship or my coaching sessions. And it's also a very difficult one to answer because it's very personal. And I even wrote an entire 5-part series on my newsletter about this. Because again, there's so many things to consider. And some of these things you can't really know unless you go into the role or you try it out. So that's why I wanted to sort of like break it down in my series, because I think this decision to become a manager shouldn't just be taken with like it, and you need to be very thorough when you decide to do it, because bad managers have potentially can create a lot of damage. And that's the last thing you want. And even as a leader, the last thing you want is to promote someone to management that can do more damage than good. Like that's a very costly mistake.
Yeah.
So when people think about these questions for themselves, they need to assess what I call it's a bidirectional fit, meaning are they a good fit for the role, which means can they perform the duties? Do they understand their responsibilities? And are they willing to make the sacrifices needed to perform the role? And then the other way around, is the role a good fit for them? Will they love it? Will they feel a sense of fulfillment? And will it be sustainable long term? And this, like, again, it's a very personal answer, but also what would help is really doing research about the role and understanding what the role is, what are the wrong reasons to go into the role, and what you need to do, like what are the expectations from you to develop and focus in if you were to choose this path.
Yeah, that is true. The next question is like, what are the essential skills and traits for a successful engineering manager?
Yeah, first I liked I love how you made the distinction between skills and traits, because I think traits are some of the key things that potential engineering managers, like we can talk about the traits first, and then the skills are things that, in my opinion, a lot of it can be acquired, right? So in terms of traits, I think good managers are the ones who care. Just as simple as that. But they care to the point where they want to get involved. They care about people to the point where they want to participate in helping them and building them up. There are many people who like mentoring, and these are the people who often ask the question, should I become an engineering manager because I like mentoring? To which I tell them that is a fundamental thing that you need as an engineering manager. It is not enough. Like, there are other roles where you can perform mentoring. So that's where the deep dive in my series also came from. But caring is critical. Like, if you don't care about people, what are you doing? Desire to help is another one. Like, genuinely wanting to help. Like, you see a problem. Again, these are traits that are good in other roles as well, but I feel like fundamentals for engineering managers. And then when it comes to people, there's some people who are they see people as hassles. Oh my God, I have to deal with this type of personality and this type of personality. And there are other people who see them as puzzles, like wanting to figure out, oh, I wonder what's gonna make this person tick, or understanding people is actually fascinating.
Yeah.
um yeah,
And
I think these are some of the core ones.
yeah,
And in
yeah.
terms of skills, like, obviously there's communication, time management, and all, like, more tactical skills, like how to do a one-on-one, how to be a better listener. But I think these can be acquired along the way, as long as people have a commitment to, if I become an engineering manager, I want to be a good one, and I will continue bettering myself to be able to show up for these people that I lead.
And I think, like, the skills that we talk about that are needed for this role, you can learn them, you can work on that and you can learn them. And once, you're talking about the traits, you can, even like, change your traits and you can be a better manager, but it is very hard. Like, it takes like a lot of time. It may take years to, develop that personality, and you love, you care about people, and you are thinking about the career growth of all the individuals in your team. And it's not like, you're thinking about just yourself or like just the few good guys that you like in your team. You're thinking about every individual. Okay, you are discussing with them that after like 5 years, that this is your whole journey, that I want you to be in that place. And then, like, if they have problem, that you have this attitude to solve them. So I think this is like, I have seen like very few good engineering managers, to be honest, in my whole journey. Most of them
Oh, don't get me started on that. I
yeah.
completely agree with you.
Because I won't say, all my engineering managers or all the managers I have worked with, they are so good. No, because most of them, they are the manager because they are good in coding. They have the experience, right?
Oh boy.
What's your take on that? Because all my life
Yeah.
I've seen that, like, all the guys who are managers, they have experience, or they are good in tech, and then they are manager, and they absolutely, they do not like talking to people and this stuff. They absolutely hate that.
Yeah, so that is one of the most common myths and misconceptions about the engineering manager role. And I talk about it in part 2. But essentially, there's this idea that management is the natural next step for high-performing engineers. And I can see why this came to, how this myth was created, basically, right? Like, they assume that, okay, this person can deliver on these projects, therefore they can be trusted, therefore they can do a good job in the engineering manager role, right? But the problem is, they're fundamentally different jobs with different competencies, right? As an engineer, you don't have to be the best communicator. Obviously, it's going to tremendously help your career, but you're not expected to be in meetings to interface with all these different roles and different personalities and different people. So um, I think becoming a manager requires significant people skills,
Yeah.
which promoting your best engineer might not guarantee, you know? And then the other, like, it's a double-edged sword, right? You take that great engineer, you make them a manager, then this manager cannot perform or doesn't do their jobs well, their job well as a manager, makes their entire team miserable, and you lost a high performer who's not able to do the engineering work either, right? So careful with that, like the mindset that best
Yeah.
engineers should be promoted. I don't agree with that.
Yeah, that is very true. And I think, like, in the tech world, everyone is so focused on, doing that courses for, like, they're doing a course or certification on AWS, Microsoft Azure, or there's like a new technology, or they're learning Terraform, or like, all of
Yeah.
these sort of stuff, right? And then you hardly listen anyone saying that, okay, I'm doing this course on communication, I'm doing this course on leadership. There are thousands of courses on Coursera, Udemy, all these platforms about leadership, about communication, about how to be, like, in the end we're talking about how to be a good leader. But I haven't seen any tech guy talking about this. I remember myself, when I was working with different companies, and I have, like, most of my experience working in my own software house. So I was leading the team and all of these sort of aspects. So I had this, thing that I realized early in the career, that, okay, I have to be good in, communication. I have to good in dealing people, because I was mostly involved in my own business. But when you come to the job sector, and then I see all the guys, there's no one is no one has this communication leadership thing in their things to do, or the thing that they want to do. So I will highly recommend all the engineers, that guys who are engineering manager, or you want to become the engineering manager, you should focus on these aspects as well.
Yeah, totally. And that's another thing that where I feel like the industry is getting better. And even calling them soft skills, like, they're not soft. They're really not soft. They're I would call them people skills. But what people don't understand is, like, some people, including executives and CEOs and entrepreneurs, they think all this stuff is fluff. Is just a nice to have. And then you see companies who are wildly successful who are here to say, it is not just a nice to have. This is translating into how the company performs. And it's a direct correlation that the healthier the culture is, the better the leadership, the more productive, innovative, and high performing the people are going to be. It really isn't that hard. It's a direct business equation. This is a business conversation we're having right now, not a, like, let's braid each other's hair, be warm and fuzzy. We're
Yeah.
talking about business results. And
Yeah.
ultimately, a manager has a fiduciary duty towards the company, right? So when they think, oh, my job here is to get projects done, but how do you get them done is also your job, with how these people get them done, right?
Yeah.
And so it's you should work on your leadership skills precisely because you have a duty towards the company and want the company to be successful.
Yeah, it's not like you are getting the project done, but the whole team is feeling so bad, and they are, they are doing extra hours, and they feel so bad. So if you're getting the project done, and it is, live on production environment, but like your team is not happy, they are, not satisfied, and they are stressed, and then, like, it's a different thing. Then in a short run, you can say that you have achieved your OKRs of this quarter, but in a long run, you are missing a lot of OKRs. So
Yeah,
this is very important
yeah,
to understand.
totally. And the other thing is, like, unhappy people will make more mistakes.
Yeah.
Unhappy people will not be as motivated to come up with this new cool thing that could save company money. Like, they're just gonna be like, okay, I'm here to do my job. It's a paycheck, and then I'll go home. And you
Yeah.
don't want that. You want people who are engaged. You want people who want the company to be successful. That's a high performing team, where everybody feels like they have a stake in the game.
Yeah, that
And
is
like, if big companies can do this, small companies, what are they waiting for? Like, what's, you know?
absolutely, absolutely. And like over the years as well, that this role of manager in the tech industry has evolved a lot, because previously, back in the days, it was not, like manager has to do this. It's more of like, technical work, and then they have to manage team. But now, obviously, with every passing year, people are also very soft now. Like previously, you can say, I have seen myself as well that managers are saying very rude and harsh things to the employees, and then everybody's okay with it. They are not stressed out with it. But now if you say these sort of like harsh word, or you're putting a lot of pressure, people also feel a bit different, as per my observation. You can contradict with it. So what's your take
So
on that?
yeah, I think definitely culture plays a part in it. And I think I've seen different parts of the world, like even in Romania, have different cultures. But I do think that people are starting to realize that talent will not stay where it's mistreated. You know, there's a lot of talent in the market and in various companies, and they're going to put up with like mistreatment for a little bit, and then they're going to find something better. So it's not going to fly anymore. And people have raised their standards, which I love. And that's one of the reasons why I started writing the Caring Techie, is for people to know you deserve good leadership. This is how good leadership looks like, you know? And I like, literally, that's what I'm encouraging people all the time. If they're in a toxic workplace, if people don't respect them, if they're being micromanaged, obviously there are things to do where you can improve your relationship with your manager. But ultimately, if that doesn't go nowhere, don't stay.
Yeah,
You can do better. You deserve better, you know? And
absolutely.
also like being rude and like, that's not cool.
Yeah.
That's not where it's 2023, guys. Come on.
Yeah. I think nowadays, like people don't even, fight for that you have done this wrong. That if the manager is, not treating the people right, they will just, receive an email after, a few weeks that I am going to a new company. So it's like that simple. And what is like, you are, for instance, an engineering manager. So then you have this challenge as well, that how much I have to be, hands-on technical stuff, and then how much my role includes management and managing the people. So what do you say about that?
Yeah, so I think this role, like in general, engineering management, depends a lot on the company and the size of the company. Like it'll look different from an early stage startup to late stage startup, mid-sized company, bigger company, and so on and so on. In my role as a tech lead manager from Google from years ago, I was explicitly doing so maybe not half and half, but I had to do my work as a tech lead as well as the manager one. And which meant I still got to code. I still got to be providing technical guidance and so on. In a more pure engineering manager role, it's less expected that you're going to have time to code. It's probably like it's very unlikely that you will have to code or that you're required to code. The reason is because you have people. You have to put people first, right? That's one thing. So one-on-ones, building people, that's taking a significant chunk of your time. Then, planning, meeting, managing the resources, figuring out what glue work needs to be done and how to help people. That should always come first, right? How you can still stay technical, because I do encourage people who switch to management to stay technical, stay involved. It doesn't mean they have to contribute, but they stay involved, meaning they don't like erase the engineer part in their brain, right? And become just a people manager. And some ways to do this are, like, for example, reading design docs. If they're tech leads, the people under them, I'm not under them, reporting to them, that's what I meant. Or the tech leads send out design docs with architectural proposals, like a great way to learn and stay up to date is reading those documents, asking questions. Have you thought about this? How is this going to work? All these things. That's a great way. Easy. You just read documents. Then secondly is learning from your team. you are definitely not going to be the technical expert anymore, but you have a lot of technical experts on your team, right? You hire them, you think they're good, okay? So then ask them to teach you. I often all the time, I'm like, hey, help me understand how this works. Hey, can you like draw for me? I literally make people draw. I love whiteboards to say, explain to me how this works, because I want to understand. Again, I didn't code that thing. I'm not probably ever going to touch the code for those services, microservices, like whatever. But I know how it works. I know what the flows are, because my team taught me, right? And then another one is code reviews.
Yeah.
Like you can still look at people's code, like what goes in, what people say, what feedback they give to each other. So there are ways to balance it. It requires some effort, and but again, priority number one is your team, and then secondary is staying technical.
Yeah, that is good. And I also believe that if you're a manager, obviously your first priority is managing your team, but you should also, learn from newsletter, that you can subscribe to a few newsletter, and then you just go there, just, you are staying up to date with certain technology, certain things, and
Yeah.
so that like when you are deciding, you are creating architecture, and then you are reviewing someone, proposal on a certain problem, then you are also aware of the new things in the market. For instance, there is this new language like Go, or like there is Rust, and then you understand, okay, why a person should use this particular language over this language that we are already using, and stuff like this. So you have this, and then you have this thing in your drive towards the tech as well, because if you stop coding, you are just managing. It can be a case after like 2-3 years. I have seen people, they say, oh, coding was so boring, I think I thank God that I am not coding anymore, and I am just managing people. It is so easy and stuff, because they're good at managing people. But then obviously on the other side as well, if they totally get their self away from coding, it is also not very good. So I would say, just like stay attached to it, and then prioritize on managing people, as you suggested as well.
Yeah, I mean, just to add one more point here, I think it's important to stay technical because you get more empathy towards your people, and then it makes you make better decisions or set better expectations with planning.
Yeah.
Even in one-on-ones, it shows up as oftentimes people feel that their manager doesn't understand what they do,
Yeah.
you know? And that's unfair because it affects their performance reviews. Like a manager should understand the work, even if they don't do it themselves. But they should understand why it's hard
Yeah.
and what challenges they could be facing and how to support them. So that's why it's important to stay technical.
Yeah, this is very common, that a lot of devs, and I've seen like a lot of people complain, my manager doesn't even understand what I'm doing. Like that guy listen like like 20% of the things that I'm doing, and then he's making comments on that, how he can do that. He doesn't. So this is very common. So you
Yeah.
can do this, and it creates like a negative culture. And
Yeah, totally.
with that, I would like to ask, as an engineering manager, how you can create that culture of continuous learning, and everybody is growing. So how to do that?
Yeah, fantastic question. And to take a step back before I answer your question, what you just said, the culture of continuous learning and innovation is what is also like falls under the what is called the psychological safety umbrella. Psychological safety was coined by Amy Edmondson, a professor at Harvard, I think. But at Google and other places have demonstrated that that's the number one trait of high performing teams. It's not the people that they're the most senior or they have the most experience. It's the teams with high psychological safety. So continuous learning and innovation is part of this because you is kind of equivalent to psychological safety, or is like a component of it. Because what this means is continuous learning is you basically reframe whatever you want to do as learning, right? Including and this goes hand in hand with innovation because it means trying things out, right? It means taking risks. right? But you can only do these things if you feel like your job is not at stake, if you make one mistake or you try something new, right? So that's just so for context, like why this is so important, how like learning, because learning, sometimes you learn that you shouldn't use a certain framework, or you learn something you shouldn't do, right? And that's just as valuable. Now in terms of, what can a manager do to promote such culture, right? I've always said incentives drive behaviors. So when you give people enough incentive to do something, they're going to start wanting to do it. And with engineers and like tech teams in general, like as long as it's in the performance evaluation, they're going to start doing it, right? Like if it's required for me to keep developing, I'm going to keep doing it, right? Second, managers need to understand that continuous learning and innovation requires resources, like, and that can be time or money, right? Time meaning like people need time to, for example, take a course if they want it, or get a specific certification or a book, right? And same with money, like maybe they want to go to a conference, maybe they want, again, to pursue higher education or other venues of, learning. What else? Third, I would say, and I've seen this successfully implemented at Google and at Uber, was knowledge sharing. They had dedicated time every week, every other week for people to come present their work. And so people learn from each other. That's, I feel like, very important, because individuals usually don't, they have different discoveries that happen in parallel. But if we can learn from people around us, like we're 10x better, right? So knowledge sharing session, and these don't even have to be very serious, like a meeting. Like I've seen beer and demos, or pizza and present. It can be casual. Yeah. And then lastly, very, very, very important, for continuous learning and innovation, you have to embrace failure. To embrace failure, you have to say, hey, this didn't go work. Like, be honest about what didn't go well and talk about it openly. Have this feedback loop, retrospectives and postmortems after like incidents, and just continue learning from mistake. Okay, we didn't want this to happen, but like, what can we do to make sure it doesn't happen again, to learn, right? That's the point. So I feel like those are the like high level, big ones.
Yeah, that is very insightful, all the 4 points that you mentioned. And, because it is very important that as you mentioned in the end, that obviously when you're learning, when you are implementing that, obviously what you're learning, then there will be, certain problems. And then you should, learn from your mistakes, rather than I have
Yeah.
some culture as well. And it directly, resonate with your manager as well. How, if you have a problem, as a manager, you are taking all the pressure from the higher management, and then onto your team, you're not passing that. And on the other hand, it can be a case that the manager is getting the pressure, and then the manager is 2x or 3xing that pressure and putting on the team.
Yes.
And then the team is also like, they're not innovating. Then next time they will implement the safe solution. They will not be focusing on, optimizing it and doing stuff like this. They will be focusing on just making it work. And so it is not on us. So, and then there's a lot of blame game as well sometime, that certain thing and problem occurs in the production. And I have seen that in a lot of companies that I've worked, that people going to the GitHub, and you click on the line and it shows that which person does code this, and in which commit. You can even open the commit as well. So, oh, this guy did this, so he will be, he will bring the cake and stuff. And other people are, just saying bad words to him for like a month. And
No.
I actually, like people
uh
are saying, oh, that is so good, that person, will bring
No,
cake. And
that
then,
is literally the
yeah,
antithesis of psychological safety. Like blame and psychological safety, like they just do not go together. In fact, I actually shared a few weeks ago on my LinkedIn It's like the story of how I caused a massive outage on Uber Eats and I didn't get fired for it. And everybody helped me. Not just that, everybody helped me.
Yeah.
Nobody said Irina messed up. Nobody even said my name. They're like, okay, there's a problem. How can we help? Um, and that's, again, I've seen this at Uber, I've seen this at Google, I've seen this at the startups I worked for. Blaming people is the worst thing you can do for a culture.
Yeah.
And instilling fear,
You
leading
have,
through fear. That's not excellent leadership.
I would say, Irina, you are like very lucky that you have worked with, some great organization, because you have these amazing people to support you. If I talk
Yeah,
about my journey, I have been, I have seen this all my life. You made a mistake back in the days when
yeah,
I was working in the banking system, even a problem on staging environment. You need to then prepare. Okay, then it's not just the whole team is getting punished basically, right? So
yeah.
on the production is like, just a suicide level
Yeah,
crime. So even now as well, we have these issues. So every time I say to the organization that this is not right, in my one-on-one with my managers, I tell them, this is not right, we should change this rule. Because if a person make a mistake and then you're pointing them out that this guy did this particular issue, imagine the effect that that person will have in his confidence. That person or a girl, they might be new in the company, or they are maybe working in the company for quite some time, but it will impact their confidence next time when they are pushing a core or doing something. They're
totally.
thinking, oh. And then I've seen a lot of people, they are not, if there is like a conflict resolution on their branch, and there's like a lot of conflicts, and they're merging to master, and then like, oh, it's very difficult, they're so confused, because they don't want other people to say bad things to them if there is an error. So
Yeah.
my point is, like, if there is certain issue, just say as a whole department that this department or this team made a
Yeah.
mistake,
Take,
rather than saying
yeah.
one person name.
But that's, yeah. And that's honestly, it makes me really sad to hear that there's still places, and I knew this was the case. There's still places where, blaming is still a norm, where people don't talk to each other with respect, and people are literally afraid to make mistakes. But the thing is, it doesn't have to be like that. Like, that's why I'm here to say this, that there's been research and studies and examples and proof that there are better ways out there. And I agree with you that I've been lucky, and I agree, but these are the standards. I know what's possible now, and that's what I want to share with other people. This is what's possible, and these can be the results. And again, big companies, like, this is not a nice to have conversation. It's a business conversation.
Yeah, that is
You
true.
want innovation, you have to let people make mistakes. To let people make mistakes, you can't harass them and chase them down for every single mistake they did. You know what happened when I made that outage? I was feeling so bad. I was feeling like I was mortified, paralyzed inside. I had this other coworker, more senior, who came to me and said, "Don't worry about it. I made the worst mistake once. I caused the company more than $1 million." I was like, "What?" Okay, that makes me feel a little better, because mine was like much smaller in scope. And he was still there, and he was like, honestly, one of the best people I've ever worked with. The fact that he came to me and shared with me that he also made a big mistake once, and it happened, but he also made a ton of money for the company, right? By his creative initiatives, and specifically, like, he was a rock star. And so now what? Are you going to fire the rock star just because he made a mistake once? No.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Like, back up your employees, when they're down, when they make the mistake, so that they can, again, with confidence, do amazing work. And
Yes.
with that, I would like to ask, there is this thing of, disagreeing, to a certain, proposed solutions or certain things that you have as an engineering manager. So what's the importance of that, importance of disagreeing and saying no to people?
Yeah. So especially as a leader, you have a duty towards your team, right? So it's your job to push back. And I think there are companies where, and you know, as you said, like they take the pressure, some managers take the pressure and then multiply it and pass it down.
Yeah.
But good managers take the pressure and protect their teams, right? And sometimes not just like don't push the pressure down, but also push back on this pressure to say, no, this doesn't make sense, or no, I don't have enough people to work on this effort, or no, we can't get it done in this amount of time, or um, you know, I don't think this is the right approach. Like all these things, you have to do it because you're protecting your people. Like they're, you know, you're protecting their focus and their well-being. You don't want to push this down so that people push back, you know, if it's possible for you for that to happen. Um, and also I feel like it's important to not, as a manager, I know there are managers out there who are very conflict averse, you know, like they don't like to fight, they don't like to disagree. That's why I call it disagreement, because it's not a fight and it doesn't have to be seen as a conflict. It's just a mismatch in opinions, right? It's not me versus the other person that I'm disagreeing with. It's just our ideas on how to solve a problem being different. So and especially I feel like for leaders, when they have the courage, when they're not afraid to challenge the status quo and they're not afraid to say what they think, it makes them, I respect these people much more than the quiet ones, the nice ones, because I don't know the nice ones, but for when someone disagrees and has the courage to say what they think, is they're operating from a place of integrity and they're standing up for what they believe in. So in fact, like with these people, I love working with these people because I usually go to them when I want to know, have I missed anything? Like they can think critically and they can probably point out things that other people haven't. So I absolutely love people who know how to disagree, but like don't be a jerk, you know?
It's not like you're disagreeing and you're making other people feel bad that, this is absolutely wrong. This is,
Yeah.
this is
Oh
correct.
yeah.
Don't say these words when you're disagreeing. Just be sympathetic.
Yeah. I actually wrote an article about like specific things and words that you should slash shouldn't say. Um, and as you said, like saying things like this is good, this is wrong, this is crap. Like, how is this helpful? This is not pushing the conversation helpful. When you say this is not going to work and here's why, and provide arguments and reasoning or concerns or like something that's not as vague as wrong, good, obvious, like stay away from those words.
That is true. And how do you approach, as an engineering manager, obviously in your team, that you are managing a lot of people, and then obviously in the team there are certain conflicts with, certain guys, they don't want this guy, person A doesn't want to work with person B, they have, certain, beef going on, and these sort of issues occur, it's like very common nowadays. So how do approach that situation, and how to resolve and break the ice?
Yeah, I mean, there's no one size fits all for this, but and people are allowed to have their own preferences about other people. But as a manager, I have a duty to sort of reorient the conversations. Like as I said, it's not one person versus the other. So if I'm have to act as a referee in them talking to each other, I can guide the conversation in such a way that it's less about blaming each other, like you didn't do this and like you always do this, and sort of reoriented into first, number one, they need to understand each other. Like I'm there to help them understand each other. Can one reflect back what the other person wants, or what the other, like maybe even another exercise that it's coming from, I think, coaching, is when you're trying to argue for the opposite side, can you find arguments in favor of the opposite side? Right? That shows
Oh,
that you are understanding.
yeah,
Right? So there are all these things that a manager can do, but like basically help, they need to be the mediator in finding common ground.
yeah,
Right? And showing empathy for each other. I think that's key in conflict resolution.
that is true. That
And then secondly, how can we solve this problem together? That's what a manager should invite people to think. These are the terms. Um, collaborative. We're not fighting each other. We're collaborating. And they don't have to agree with each other. Like disagreeing is fine. Um, and they don't have to be best buddies. Like they don't have to be even friends to work together. I think that's another misconception. Um, and yeah, I think those two, and open communication and being safe to like vocalize what they their opinions, again going into psychological safety. I feel like psychological safety is like at
Yeah.
the very core foundation of everything.
Yeah. And in your reply, you also mentioned, mentorship. So I wanted to know,
Mhm.
what's the role of mentorship, and then like how, properly mentoring your, employees and all these software engineers can potentially, you can build, the new leaders in your companies by, mentoring them and providing them the good path and how to grow. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, totally. I've been a mentor. I've mentored hundreds of people. And I did it because I know that good mentors can skyrocket someone's career, because that's what happened to me. When I was at Google, my mentor at Google, he helped me tremendously. And some of the ways a good mentor can help is guidance. When mentors help navigate career, help their mentees navigate their career. Skills. What are what are opportunities for development? A mentor can tell you, hey, maybe you can read this book, or maybe you can attend this class or try this, because they've seen that, they've been there, they've done the things, right? um Confidence boost. Having a mentor can make you feel more confident, and I think that's huge. Because oftentimes mentees, and I hear them, and I know I was that person. Like I was exactly like them. I'd go to my mentor and I would tell them, maybe I was too direct, or maybe I didn't say it clearly, or maybe I did something wrong. And they would just be like, no, you did good. And I was like, oh, I did. And so I see this with my mentees who come to me unsure, and I can just validate them and say, no, you took the right steps. I approve of this. You did great. And they're like, oh, I did. Oh my God, that's amazing. You know? Yeah, and then just teaching things, like you learn from someone's experience. Like that's huge. And like, or that's the other thing with mentors. If you get mentors from the same org, they can tell you like history behind the organization, or what I call tribal knowledge that sometimes you can't find in documentation and things like that. So it's huge.
Yeah, that.
And another thing that I want to say, very, very important. One common misconception with mentorship is I think people think about mentors as being more like for junior engineers or entry-level people, and it is not true. Literally everybody can benefit from the wisdom and guidance of someone more senior than them, and including managers. Like first-time managers should absolutely get either a coach or a mentor who's senior or who's able to guide them, because they will need it.
Yeah, that is true. And you just need that. Sometimes I believe that you need some sort of, external validation, a
Mhm.
person who is more experienced than you and who has done like a lot more work than you, saying, you did the right thing. As you mentioned, you are a bit confused that you didn't knew like you did the right thing or no. And then they are saying you have done right, just don't worry about that. And then you feel
Yeah,
a lot good about yourself. And
yeah,
about having a mentor, I personally believe this as well, that you should have a mentor, even if you are like a manager, even if you're like a CEO of like
yes.
20 companies. I don't care, because like having a mentor is not like we're talking about like, they will help you how to be like, a manager, or they will help you how to be this, head of architecture or this. No, 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 because they are helping you to go to the next level. Maybe you own one company, then you have the mentor. That person is like a angel investor. He's like 70 years old and created like a lot of companies and then sold them and flipped them. And then that person can tell you, okay, you are like so busy with one company, how you can, automate this process and build multiple companies. So it's like a different ball game, right? It's not like
Hmm.
a mentor in the software field. So just have mentor in every aspect of your life, I would say. When you're
Yeah.
then you need different sort of mentors, but it's
Yeah.
very important that you have them. Otherwise, it can be a stage you can reach to a certain point in life, then you feel like, oh, I have done, I have come like very far and I'm doing so good. That will, just what it will do is it will, stop your growth, I would say.
Yeah. Totally. Totally.
So, as an engineering manager, communication skills are very crucial. And sometimes I've seen that, you have to explain technical stuff to non-technical, people. So, how do you approach that as an engineering manager?
Yeah, I've had to deal with this so many times in my career, from marketing, legal, design, product, even product managers that are supposedly more technical, but they're still like very high level.
Yeah.
So what I try to do first and foremost is try to understand what they care about, because sometimes they don't need to understand the very deep technical details of something, but what I need to understand is like, what do they need from me? They need to I am enabling them to do something with their job, but like I get curious. What are you trying to solve? What do you need to know? And based on that, I calibrate my language and also the amount of information that I share. And one way I like to think about explaining like complicated technical concepts to non-technical people is to think that they're my grandmother.
Yeah.
And 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 you can always create a story about what's happening. They don't need to know what type of database, what type of services, what type of programming language. They need to understand mechanisms and how they talk to each other. And sometimes I even like take them onto a whiteboard and like draw boxes and like they talk to each other, and I said, and then this is this, and then this goes here, and then this is this back, and this is literally just kind of like a very conversation. And then what I've experienced actually with one lovely PM that I worked with is that she understood what I explained so well that I could see her drawing it out for others. And I'm like, you are incredible. You remembered everything I told you. And I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. Okay, this is actually a really deep technical thing that you were just able to understand, because I just drew diagrams and like schematic things. So giving them a visual is always helpful, and also treating them with respect. Like I don't treat them like they're small children and capable of understanding, like, oh, you don't know this, blah blah. Like I try to make them feel, because that's the other thing. Most times, like marketing people that I worked with, they're ashamed to come to us and ask these questions. They're like, hi, I don't want to waste your time with this stupid question. So I try to make them feel good about asking the question,
Yeah.
you know? So not feel bad for, oh, you don't know this. How do you not know this? No, that's not, I don't want to, be patronizing. And then one thing that I'm very careful when I speak is not to use acronyms, because they most likely don't know what those like acronyms mean. And
Yeah.
engineers, and I see engineers do this all the time. They assume acronyms, but no, people don't know acronyms. You have to use the full thing. Don't use acronyms, guys.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true. I've seen that like some guys, I don't know, they maybe like it that whenever they're explaining something, even to non-tech guys, they're saying, okay, this microservice happened this, and then this was the protocol gRPC, and then we did,
Yeah.
and we put it in the, event bus, and then we receive that
And the
from the
protobuf, and
yeah,
then we
and then the other guys are like, even the junior developers are confused that what is happening right now. So just don't do this. They don't, as you explained, they don't need to understand this, how it works technically. You just need to tell them, okay, this is like the feature, or this is the new feature, and then this is like for a customer standpoint, like how it will work, and just provide them the information in that regard, not like very tech and the
yeah,
infrastructure part and this sort of thing. And like
yeah.
as you mentioned that showing them visuals, it's also very good. Like you understand you understand it. Like how I used to do it, I used to use lucid chart, and used to
Mm-hmm.
like very simple block
Fair,
diagram.
yeah.
Like just block like this particular, there's like a web page, user goes here and then there, like just very simple block diagram, not very fancy sequence diagram or stuff like that. No, so then they very
Yeah,
easily
yeah,
understand and see it, oh, like this. So
yeah. Yeah.
This is the
So
way
much
forward.
easier. I know. And
Yeah.
it does not take that much time. It's very basic. It's literally just some lines and some
Yeah.
rectangles.
And
Yeah.
in the tech world, as like there's like a lot of pressure. Like you always have like, very tight deadlines, and then you want to finish all the work on that deadline and make sure that there are like less errors and bugs. So how an engineering manager, make sure that the team is delivering and they are not getting stressed out as well on the same,
Yeah.
it's not like they're delivering and they are stressed out. So how the manager can make sure of that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And as a person who had to deal with burnout in her career, um, it's a hard one for managers to get because it's usually also a combination of there are people who genuinely love working, and it's kind of hard to encourage those people to you know, step back from their work. But at the same time, like for example, with as a leader, the thing that I truly care about when I have a very high stake project with high deadlines is I'm a big believer in this saying that says slow down to speed up. Because I think, and what this means is basically I spend a significant amount of time ahead of the starting of the project, sort of thinking through it, planning it, understanding the resources I need, trying to minimize the number of surprises that I might get along the way. You
Hmm.
know, I never jump into just building without thinking through. And I think that's really key because a well-planned project is going to be less anxiety producing if you know what's ahead of you, if you know what the next steps are, if it's been scoped. um but again, it requires an amount of time at the beginning where you don't really have anything to show other than that you thought about, like you planned, that you scoped, you have a list of tasks and you broke it down. But I think that really helps the team feel less anxious. And I've led teams through really tight deadlines, very high stake projects, and it works. It works. Um, Additionally, I want to say with respect to well-being in general, a leader can lead by example and should lead by example. You
Yeah.
know, I won't be able to show up for my team if I don't take care of myself and if I don't put my own oxygen mask on first. And so that's the behavior I want to model for my team, right? So that's the behaviors I'm also encouraging my team to do. And the same with setting boundaries and like, especially during tight deadlines and high stakes project, it is only going to stress them out if I ping them at like 10 p.m. You know what I mean? So I try to keep those for very, very, very like exceptional cases and sort of respect the working hours as much as I can. Like not be the leader who's like, oh, just because we have this tight deadline that like the work is the most important thing in your life, so you should respond to me no matter when I text you.
Yeah.
That's not quite okay, right? So yeah, I think those are some of the things that I try to do, and they work. I've worked in many high pressure, tight deadline situations, and freaking out and like trying to do too much and like not stopping to think, it's not helpful. So the more you can calm down, take care of yourself, sleep, eat, take care of your needs, the better you are in these high stress situations.
Yeah, that is true. And then all the points that you have, mentioned in that first of all, it's better to plan all of the stuff in the start rather than, just understanding like 50% of the scope and start coding and start, work on that. Then you might see a lot of, red flags and problems, and then your estimates can be wrong as well. So it's good, like just plan everything. I like this idea. And all the, things that all the task, everything, even if there are certain things that
Yeah,
requires research and POCs, that before even starting the whole sprint. So it's good. Then you
yeah,
can tell the stakeholder as well that, okay, at this certain point we need to do some POC, and it can take like another like additional 2 weeks. And
yeah,
then the next part of inspiring people, leading, it's not about, just if you are doing something and if you are inspiring them and if you are leading them, then obviously they will, get inspired and they will work hard on certain things as well. And I've seen this myself as well, that I used to, every day, as a manager, I used to tell all my, teammates that, just go home, just, come to
Yeah.
upstairs, that we will play, we used to play like ping pong. So I say, come upstairs. They say, no, there's a task. I say, I don't care about the pen and test. Just
Yeah.
close the laptop. And
Take a
then,
break.
yeah, it's like, like end of the day, just, we don't care. Like if we will do it next day, don't worry about
Yeah. Yeah.
finishing it now. It will take 15 minutes. It will happen every day. So just don't
Yeah.
worry about it. But
Yeah.
on the other end, whenever there is like certain, tight deadline or certain issue, and then we have to set, it's like I don't even, most of the time I don't even tell my team that we have to sit. They are, sitting, I'm working, and I see, and all of them are sitting there and they are working, because they
Yeah.
know that if we do not work, obviously our manager has, he will listen to a lot of, pressure from the top. So they are
Yeah.
working for you because they don't want you to, let
Yeah.
down you. And then it
Yeah.
works like that. Then
Yeah,
it
but
creates
that's,
a very
yeah,
good
exactly.
culture.
That's where you want to get to a team, with a team, right? Like they will do it from their own volition, from their own
Yeah,
goodwill, and they'll be self-motivated to do this,
yeah,
not because you boss them around and you like
yeah,
commandeer, but because they're genuinely interested. And
yeah.
I love how you said that, because that's exactly why,
Yeah,
you know.
because if
And
you care about them, and if they are in a certain, problem, they are sick, or someone in their family is member is sick, and then you're saying, okay, don't worry about the work, we will take care of it, and you are taking care of all the individuals, right? And
yeah,
then obviously every person remember it, and when it's
yeah,
time to, they have to take care of you, they will,
yes,
definitely, stand up and they will do that. But if you are like bossing them and then you are in
yeah.
a tight situation, they will like, just
Like, why would I do this? Why would I?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that is the
yeah,
situation.
yeah. I love that.
And what's the last, what's the final piece of advice from you to all the, inspiring engineering managers?
Yeah, I think so. First of all, leadership. If people take away one thing after this interview, is that leadership is not tied to a role. We talked a lot about engineering managers. We talked about like tech leading in general, but in mentorship. But leadership has nothing to do with the role you're in. It has everything to do with how you behave. And the most powerful way for someone to improve their leadership skills is leading by example and demonstrating the behavior and the work ethic and the values that you want others to emulate. And by doing this, you build trust, because your actions will always speak louder than your words. And you're modeling the behavior you want others to see, and you're setting a high standard that when people see, oh, this is how this person did this and they succeeded, and they, were that's how I got my first like tech leading role. Is I just started acting like a leader. And I tell the story on my in my newsletter, but I said I became a tech lead first in my head, and then I got the role, you know. And that's the thing, the power of leading by example is very much underutilized. We don't need to wait for other people to give us permission to be a leader. And once we understand this, that's like, you know,
Yeah,
rocket rocket ship launch leadership skills. Um,
that is true. That is.
so I think that's the biggest takeaway.
Yeah. And yeah, that brings us to end of another exciting episode. In this episode, we discuss about like engineering manager, tech leadership and communication skills and a lot of things, and it was very insightful as well, learning a lot of these things and experience and your life journey. So thank you so much for joining and, sharing all these insights.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and for all the listeners, I will paste the newsletter of Irina down below. You must check this newsletter out because you post a lot of good content. So you can, subscribe to that newsletter and keep watching these videos. Until next time, have a nice day and take care of yourself.
Thank you. Take care.